Okay, so today we're going to introduce you guys to capacitors. Capacitors are like water tanks in that they store energy. This is a capacitor. And so you'll notice that this capacitor is polarized, which means that it does have a positive and a negative side. What you're going to look for today is the 220 UF or 220 microfarad. So capacitors are measured in farads. A farad is a unit of capacitance. The U in front of it stands for micro, which is 1/1,000,000th of a farad. So a 220 UF would be read as a 220 microfarad capacitor, which means it's 220 millions of a farad. You notice in looking at your capacitor that there is a stripe on the one side that has the negative. So this is polarized, which means it is a diode. You also have non-polarized capacitors, which are your ceramic capacitors in your kit that will look like, let me grab one for you, if I can get one real fast. Here, if I can find one, they are going to be looking like this. So these are going to be your non-polarized capacitors, which are going to be your little ceramic brown capacitors. Okay, so today we're going to use our polarized capacitors that looks like a water storage tank. So the first thing that we're going to do is we have to create our LED circuit. And so we are going to create our LED circuit. So we're going to use our 220 ohm resistor. We always start with our negative. So I'm going to put one end of my resistor into the negative. I'm going to go into row 40 just to make it nice and easy for me. So I'm going to go into row 40 of my breadboard. So then what I am going to do is I need to connect the positive power of my LED light. So I am going to go from the positive rail and I'm going to go right next to it into row 39 of my breadboard, which is going to be getting my positive current. So right next to each other. So what I have got here is my negative is going into from my negative rail going into my resistor. Resistor is going over into line 40 of my breadboard. Then I have my positive rail going over into line 39. I'll take my LED light, which I've got here. Remember that you've got your longer pin, which is your positive pin for your LED. So my longer pin is going to go, which is my positive, so I'm going to put it in so that the positive leg of the LED is going to the positive purple wire that I've got. The negative leg of the LED is going to connect to the negative LED. So this is what we should have for our circuit. So if we're looking at our circuit here, and you guys see this, oh, let me turn it the other way so you can see what we've got here. So this gives you your LED circuit, and it has got everything in there for you. So you've got your pins. So now what I'm going to do, I put my breadboard back down, just making sure we're refreshing here again. So from my negative rail goes to my resistor. My resistor then goes into breadboard row 40. Then that goes into the negative leg of my LED. Then from my positive leg of my LED goes to the purple wire that is in row 39 of my breadboard. And then row 39 of my breadboard connects back to my positive. I connect up my power. I put the red to my positive. I put the black to my negative. And then when I turn on my power supply, I should get my green light to come on, which it does. And so then when I turn this off, my light goes off immediately. So now what we're going to do is we're going to put in a capacitor. So the theory of this is, so I'm going to connect a negative rail to a negative rail, okay? And then I am going to, our negative rail is going into row, we're going to put that into row 30. So from my negative rail, I'm going into row 30, and then I have to go from my positive rail, and I am going to go into row 29. So let's do this to make this nice and easy. So row 29 is going to be my positive rail, and I'm just going to connect it up here because I just have to make connection with my positive rail, showing you that it doesn't have to be exactly right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my capacitor, the 220 microfarad capacitor that you've got here, the white stripe, which is the negative, make sure that that gets connected to my negative row. The positive leg or the black leg is going to be connected here. We're going to turn my power on. So what happens is you now see that my battery is connected, or my power is connected, my light is on. Here's the cool thing with your capacitor. What's happening now is that the capacitor is also drawing electricity, and it is storing the electricity in this little water tank looking thing. So this is actually storing the electricity. So then I've got my positive rail is going to row 39, which then connects to the positive leg of my capacitor. The negative rail is going to row 30, which is connecting to the white or the negative leg of my polarized capacitor. So when I hold this up, and you guys can see this, and we put this up here nice and close so that you guys can see what we're looking at here, it shows you what's going on with this capacitor. Okay, so we've got that set up here. So if I turn this like this sideways so that you guys can see here, you should be able to see how those wires are connected. So now watch what happens. When I turn off my LED light, it is no longer going to go immediately out. What's going to happen is it's going to slowly fade, because when I turn the light off, it's going to then discharge the capacitor, which is going to let all of the stored electrical current in the capacitor feed into the light, and then the light will dissipate. So when I turn this off, you notice that slowly fades, right? So now let me take the capacitor out. I take the capacitor out. Let me turn it back on. The light comes on, and when I turn it off, the light goes immediately off. So the difference between the capacitor and not having a capacitor is using it as a storage method for electrical current.